where you can get that recording. I'll show you that. So we turn on my camera so you can put a face to a name. So my name is John Meredith. I'm a member of the education team here at Sumo Logic. And as I've asked many of you where you're all located, some of you know where I'm located, many of you don't, but I'll tell you now. I'm up in New Hampshire on the US East Coast. So I'm about an hour to an hour and a half north of Boston, Massachusetts. So this is where I live. And as I've mentioned to other folks, I've traveled all over, lived all over. Lived in San Diego, St. Louis, grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. Lived up a while up in Seattle, Washington, actually up in Linwood, Washington, to be more precise. And now, like I said, we call New Hampshire here home. So we enjoy the heck out of it. But the point here is that we're here to talk about metrics basics and workshop. And the reason we created this workshop was really twofold. The first thing is that when we originally created our metric product, our customers gave us some very valuable feedback and said, you know, it's good, but it's kind of complicated. And so we sent our developers back to the developer area to create a more simplified interface. And hopefully when I show you this interface in a few minutes, you'll say, yeah, they got it. I knocked it out. So hopefully you'll agree it's a much simpler and easier interface. The second thing, the second reason we do this workshop is because we have a lot of customers who use our products for logs, and they love our products for logs, and that's great. But when you buy, you know, how much data you ingest, that's what you get charged by, and what tiers and stuff you use. But how much data and the tiers that you use, you're allotted so many metrics. And many of our customers are not using anywhere close to their allotted metrics. So in my mind, you're wasting resources. Let's help you get some resources. Let's help you use this tool better so that we can make things work. So that is my story, and I'm sticking with it. My only ask of you all is if you've got questions, please feel free to ask. And I'm going to go ahead and go through one more pass here of the participants, and I'm enabling everybody's microphone. So if you want to ask your question directly, you're welcome to. If you want to put it in the chat box, you're welcome to. Either one works fine by me. But if you don't know anything about Sumo Logic, you now know one person. You know me, right? The crazy instructor who teaches out of his attic here in the New England area. So anyway, that being said, I'm going to turn off the video and I am going to start talking about our agenda. Obviously, we're going to start talking about what is a metric, why do I care? Then we'll talk a little bit about this new metric interface. I'll show you that and, you know, talk about some specific values with regards to metrics, like how long do we retain metrics and things like that. Then we're going to talk about the applications that we have built that use metric data. And I'm going to walk you through two applications, or we're going to walk together through two applications where you can see, kind of going from a very high level, I got a problem, and then I can use these dashboards and this application to kind of understand what's going on. And then our third topic is going to be unified alerts. You can, I can, we can, in our product create alerts based on log data or metric data. Obviously, our focus is going to be on metric data, but we'll create a unified alert and let you see that. Then we'll wrap up the course, see what questions you have, logical next steps, and we'll all bid you a civil adieu. So that is the game plan. And as I said, if you have any questions as we're going through this, please do not hesitate to ask. And again, I see a couple folks have joined us, so let me enable your microphone. So if you want to ask questions, you are certainly welcome to do so. So, metric. What's a metric? A metric typically is a data point that measures the value of something over time, right? So, gee, how much do I have in my checking account today? How much do I have in my checking account yesterday or last week or last month? You know, practical metrics type things. The measurement of temperature on an hourly basis, right? We're doing some sort of a manufacturing process and we need to regulate that temperature. It's very important that we do that. You want to look at your height or your weight once a week. Well, I don't want to look at my weight once a week, but that's okay. You probably do. And one of my favorite little exercises here, you know, you take your child and you put them against the wall and you mark where they are at 6-month intervals and you watch that little line grow. And it's amazing how you know, tall and such your kids become over time. So those are typical everyday metrics we see. Typically in work, when we think of metrics, we typically think in terms of environmental metrics. You know, what's my CPU doing? What's my disk space availability and stuff like that. We also might think in terms of software licensing agreements or software license agreements, SLAs, And we want to track our key performance indicators, that's what KPI stands for, over time to see how are we doing maintaining our SLAs, or how are we doing in taking care of our customer satisfaction. Some sort of quantitative value that we're tracking over time, okay? And of course, we can also use metrics to determine if an outage has occurred, if we got problems. Is there a question? Okay. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our customers, when they purchase Sumo as part of their Sumo package, they get so many metrics. They get so many data points per minute, DPMs. And so, for example, in this example here, I've got over 400,000 DPMs. And of that 400,000 DPMs, I have available almost 300,000 DPMs. And so, again, as I mentioned, a lot of folks don't use metrics as much as they could. And so it's part of the reason we created these, but we typically refer to a metric as something called the data point per minute. And so you'll see that, you know, as far as billing and stuff like that, those metrics are DPMs. Okay. So metric ingestion, we do not ingest metrics that are older than a week, right? You bring in a metric, it's going to have a timestamp. It's within the week, we're in great shape. Now, when we ingest that metric or those metrics, right, typically we'll keep them in the raw. Now, you may update your metrics every 10 seconds, every 2 minutes, every whatever interval you set with your source of data that you're bringing in. You'll define how often you want to grab and send that metric data. Now, the metric data in the raw we store for 7 days. And then at 1 minute intervals, we do a min, a max, an average, a count, and a sum. And we restore that in our roll-up table there, the 1 minute roll-up, for 30 days. And then at 1 hour intervals, we'll again do a min and a max and an average and a sum and a count. And we'll store that in a roll-up table where we retain that for 13 months. So my message to you is, if you are looking at metrics and you want to go back to an hour resolution, you go back as far as 13 months. If you want to go back as far as within a minute resolution, you go back as far as 30 days. And if you're looking at your raw metric data, you can get that for at least 7 days. So that's our retention period by design. For those of you familiar with Sumo Logic, hopefully you've seen this slide before, but there are 3 phases to our Sumo Logic process, if you will. The first phase is our data collection phase. Now, if you're on Azure or if you're on AWS or some sort of a cloud environment, you don't have to worry about a collector. We already have a collector out there that you can use, right? It's a hosted collector. We maintain it. We take care of it. You don't have to worry about it. If you've got a bunch of old legacy systems, or if you want to take your personal computer and you want to collect data off of it, metric data or whatever, you will need to install a collector. Now, this collector is a lightweight little Java application. And this collector does 3 things. It compresses your data, it encrypts your data, and it sends it to Sumo Logic. That's all it does. So collectors are the highway into which data gets transferred from whatever environment into Sumo Logic. So think of it as the highway that transfers our data. And then underneath the collectors, I'm sorry, is there a question? Okay. Underneath those collectors, we have sources. So I might, if I'm on Azure, I might want to grab the network monitor, sources and data from my network monitor. That's one of the sources that you can grab. Maybe you also want to grab some specific Microsoft SQL Server data that you want to grab. That might require you to add another source. Maybe if you're on AWS, you want to grab the S3 data bucket, or you want to grab CloudTrail metrics, or whatever. There's all kinds of data here that you want, all kinds of source data that you might be interested in, depending on your environment and what you're trying to grab. These sources could be logs. These sources could be metrics. By the way, when we ingest when we ingest logs, we can also convert the data in those logs to metrics if we want to. That's a capability of our product. Now, once the data is in here, now we can write queries. We can write metric queries or log queries. We can write the queries to aggregate, be able to generate the charts and the visualizations that we want. Map charts, pie charts, bar charts, whatever. That's the searching and analyzing portion. And then we're going to take those charts and we're going to add them to a dashboard. So a dashboard can consist of many charts, many different visualizations. Each one of those visualizations or charts represents either a metric query or a log query. And then we can also set up alerts if values get too high, too low, that sort of thing. Okay. Now we've got a little conversation about metric operators. We have log search operators, we have metric operators, and you'll see that we've got a whole bunch of these operators. In a little while, I'll show you in our documentation where you can search for these operators and find out how to use them, the syntax, and all kinds of fun stuff. But these are typically the operators that we have. And as I said, I will show you where these are in our documentation so you can see more information. Okay. In fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to advance to this slide right here. And I want you all to join me. So I would like you all to fire up a Google Chrome or Firefox browser. And I'd like you to go to service.sumologic.com. So just in the URL box, type in service.sumologic.com. And when you do that, I'll do it as well. It's going to log me right in. I'm going to log out though, because you haven't logged in. So let me get out of this. Let me log out. So I look like what you're going to see. So here I am in the Sumo Logic environment. Now, the next thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pick a number, a 3-digit number from 001 to, we'll say 399. Okay, I can go higher, but don't really need to. So for example, some of you are into James Bond, you might grab 007, right? Here in New Hampshire, where I live, the state that I live, our area code is 603. So I might grab 603. Somebody might grab 123. Somebody might grab 456. But I'd like you to select the 3-digit number and I'd like you to type it in the chat box, just so I can make sure that you're all, there's some uniqueness to this. It's not a big deal if two of you have the same number. It just makes things a little easier for me. So good. So thank you for that. And then what you're going to do in the email address is you're going to log in as Training Plus Analyst with that 3-digit number at sumologic.com. So your email address is going to be Training Plus Analyst with that 3-digit number at sumologic.com. And the password is capital SUMO, capital SUMMER, numeral 2, numeral 1, exclamation mark. And as I said, you can copy it right out of the chat box. I did put it in the chat box. So if you scroll back a little bit, you'll see I put this information in there and you can copy and paste it if you want it. Okay. Again, since I grew up in Missouri, the show me state, I'm going to show you what we've got here. Sumo Summer 21, exclamation mark. And if I click sign in, it should log me right in. Thanks. It didn't log me right in. That account doesn't like. So let's try a different account. Let's try 603. Okay, I like that. So I'm logged in, and that's what I want you all to be able to do. I want you to log in, because what we're going to do is we're going to do something together. We're going to play around here together, poke around. This is a very hands-on exercise. This, by the way, is our training environment. And so here in our training environment, you can, I can, we can poke and plod and play around. So first question here. Hang on a second. I see some electricity. Okay. Yep. We got a couple folks here who are, got some background noise and things like that. So if y'all don't mind, I think I'm going to see if I can't mute everybody. Or I can ask you guys to at least mute yourselves. That would be wonderful. Thank you. That way we don't have any hot mics. Okay. So there's that. And then they said this PDF document I just uploaded has some exercises that we're going to do. In fact, if you open up the PDF document, it talks about how to log in, right? And the current password, like I said, is Sumo Summer 21 exclamation mark. Talk about that in a second. And then we're going to start doing some demos. So we'll start with a metric demo and play around and do all this cool stuff in this PDF document. So that's why the PDF document exists. Kind of gives you step-by-step directions. You can keep me honest if you want. But the other thing I wanted to mention to you is that password, Sumo Summer 21. That password changes every single month. Changes on the first Monday of the month, to be honest with you. And so if you want to know, if you're in August here and you want to log into our training environment. Okay. Theo, I'm going to answer your question in just a second. Give me a second. If you want to know what the password is, you can email me. So I just put my email address in the chat box. So if anybody wants it, they can certainly do that. And Theo mentions that I don't have access to this PDF. And yeah, some of you with your companies probably did not give you access to this. So let's talk about that. How do I access this? And how can I access this recording and all that good stuff? Well, if for those of you who were able to log into Sumo, again, here in Sumo, over here on the left is our navigation pane. So you may have a bunch of tabs open. Don't worry about that. We'll fix that in a second. But over here, over here on top, you'll see maybe a bunch of tabs. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But over here on the left, there's this Sumo Logic with this hamburger menu. So you click on it, it will open up. And then down here is our main menu. And if you click on Help in our main menu, you'll see there's our documentation, support, and all kinds of stuff. If you click under Help under Community, click under Community, this takes you to our Sumo Logic community. This is where we, our customers, our partners, everybody collaborates. So this is an environment for you to look for query examples, whether it be log query or metric query. This is where you can ask questions. It's a nice little area here to play around. Now, in the Sumo Logic community, I am going to search for the word slides, S-L-I-D-E-S, slides. And when I do that, I get two returns here. So one return is this first one, and that's the one I want. When I click on it, you'll see that for all of our courses, all of our certification courses, including our metric basic here, you should be able to click on this labs, and that should take you to that PDF document. So here is how you get to this PDF document by clicking labs. If you want a copy of the recording, you can click here and you're probably going to get the recording I did this morning of this class. And then also if you want our slides, you can click on that and you can access our slides. Now, to make things a little bit easier for you, let me take this URL. Let me copy it. Oops. Hang on a second. And let me paste it in the chat box. So our goal is to try to make things as easy as we can for you, only this is not the right URL. Hang on a second, guys. There we go. My URL got messed up. There we go. That's much better. All right. So yeah, our goal is to make things as easy as we possibly can and as helpful as we possibly can for you. Also, if you're interested in taking our certification classes or whatever, these are 3-hour-long classes, 2 hours of lecture and lab and an hour of certification exam. And by the way, this is where we go into more detail about metrics, this metric mastery certification, okay? But again, you can see our labs, recordings, all of that fun stuff. So just wanted you to be aware of that. And hopefully that answers the question that was asked earlier of how do I get access to that PDF? Great question. Okay. Now, while I'm here, I can also click on help and click on documentation. Now, I can do that, but you know, I'm kind of old school. So I'm going to open up a tab. And if I want to type in the URL for our documentation, it's real simple. help.sumologic.com. Help.sumologic.com takes you to our documentation, pure and simple. And then, of course, I can search for things. But if I scroll down, everything's kind of in a chapter, right? Our visualizations and alerts in a chapter, managing stuff is in a chapter, metrics, it's got its own chapter, transaction tracing has its own chapter, et cetera, et cetera. Anything to do with metrics is in the metric chapter. Now, when you open up a chapter, your table of contents will move to the left. But here you can read through our documentation and have yourself a good old time here. Now, I talked about those metric operators a few minutes ago. So let me do a search for metric operators. And if I do a search for metric operators, I see that we've got a little link here that talks about metric operators. And here they are. Here they are listed. All the metric operators that we use. And again, I'll take this URL, I'll copy it, I'll paste it in the chat box. Oh, and for those of you who'd love to have a PDF version of this, If you go to that URL and the last of the first sentence here, you'll see that there's a metric cheat sheet PDF. And if you click on it, it opens up a nice little PDF document that you can print, put next to your computer, and these are all the various metric operators and how to use them. So I want to try to make this as easy for you as we possibly can. Okay. Now, what I want to do is I want to start playing with metrics. Okay. So I want to go in here and I want to start playing with metrics. Now, for that, I don't need this navigation panel open. I can close it up. If I want to close it up, I simply click on this left turn signal and it goes, collapses down. Now, I want to grab a new metric. I can either click on this new blue button and grab metric from there. I can do an Alt-M, or I can click on this icon. Doesn't make any difference. It all does the same thing. This is going to create for us a new metric query. And this is our new metric query interface. Now, when you open this up, I hope you see something where it says metric and then a big old underline, filters and a big old underline, and an add operator that goes to down. If you see something that looks like enter a metric query, you are in advanced mode. So we've got two modes that we can use. Basic mode, which is going to use key value pairs, and or advanced mode where you can type in a long, elaborate metric query. If you do see enter a metric query here, to get yourself back into basic mode, all you have to do is go over to the far right corner. And in the far right corner, you'll see these three vertical dots. We call this the More Action button. If you click on this, you can switch back to basic mode. And so I would like everybody to be in basic mode in the Metric Explorer. And basically what we're going to do here is we're going to use a series of key value pairs. Metric equals some value. Filter equals some value. We're going to sit there and look and create metric queries as we need to. Now, the metric I want to use, I'm going to start searching for CPU. And as I start typing in CPU, I see I get a drop list here of all kinds of nice CPU choices. In fact, it's quite an extensive drop list. But I want CPU load average for 15 minutes. And if I select that CPU load average for 15 minutes, then my drop down moves over to my filters, and I don't want any of those. So I'm just going to hit the escape key and close that up. But here, when I'm looking at this 457 entries of CPU load average. These are different environments, different machines, different systems, different types, basically 457 different systems. And if I click on chart, you'll see that it very quickly turns us into a spaghetti factory. Or as somebody said this morning, some fantastic line art. Now, I can, you can, we can in this legend select a specific value if I want, or if I want to see them all, I can see whatever I want. So it's kind of easy to see and kind of easy to see this, but obviously this much information is a bit overwhelming. But while I'm here, if I want to, obviously I can turn this into a pie chart of sorts. I don't want to turn it into a single value because it's not a single value, but I may want to create some honeycombs where I can see all of my different CPU utilizations. And oh, by the way, when you define these, you can also define them by range. So if my CPU is anywhere from 0 to say 60%, I'll put that in green. If it's 61 to 75, I want to see that in yellow. And quite frankly, if it's above 76, I want to see it in red. Okay. And so if I look at all these, their values are, looks like less than 60. Okay. It's like they're all running pretty cool. Okay. But really what I want to do, if you don't mind, is I want to go back to my time series and I want to go back to my line. And by the way, I can make this a line, or I can make this a column or a bar chart, whatever I want. Okay. Now, if this is a query, and it certainly is, I want to filter it for a specific host. I see I got something in the chat box. Let me take a peek. Okay. Ricky asked a question: are Sumo metrics equivalent to something like SolarWinds, PRTG, What does WMI, Windows metadata instrumentation, SNMP monitoring? Or does Sumo service only work on log files? No, we can grab metrics. We can grab some of that WMI type material. In fact, lately, we've been working really hard to make sure we support OpenTelemetry. So we'll be able to bring in data through OpenTelemetry, whether it's metric data or log data. So Ricky, I hope that answers your question, sir. All right. So here, what I want to do is I want to filter for a specific host, okay? And you got some metadata tags here that we can use. And right now, you got to kind of take it on faith because we don't have a lot of time to explain all these different metadata tags. But source category, if I select source category equals, I get a listing of various systems that I can use. And if I grab the host metric /J Meredith, which is my host metric, I can now see my computer's CPU load average for the last 15 minutes. And so now it's only showing me the average of my environment here, my system. And again, if I want to, I could turn this into something else, but it's a single value. By the way, I can obviously turn it into a single value monitor if I want, but I kind of like the line chart. So this is how relatively easy it is, I hope. In my opinion, it's very easy, but my opinion's maybe biased, where we can select stuff. Now, what I want to do is I want to add another query here. So I click on the plus sign. It's on the first row. I now add a second query. For my metric, again, I'm going to grab that CPU load average again, 15 minutes. And again, because I don't specify a specific collector or something, I see the old spaghetti factory here, right? But this time for my spaghetti factory, I can add an operator. So what I want to do is I want to see the average of all of my systems' CPU load average. So here in this line, I am seeing my CPU load average. And then down below it, I am seeing my John Meredith's host CPU load average. And if I want to, bear with me a second while I just hit escape to get out of the screen. I can, if I want to, in my legend here, turn on or turn off the things that I want to see. This legend becomes available to me when I make a dashboard out of this. Okay. Okay. Pyman, you're trying to use follow me, but you're using my company's Sumo Logic instance and can't get CPU or anything else. I understand that. That's why we want you to log into the training environment. So what I want you to do is pick a 3-digit number from 001 to 399. I don't care what number you pick. And I want you to log in to this URL, and where it says the email address is training plus analyst with that 3 hashtags, replace the 3 hashtags with your number, your 3-digit number at sumologic.com. And then you can log into the password of Sumo Summer 21. Then you'll be able to follow along with me. So for those of you who got here a little late or whatever, that's hopefully makes it easy for you to see the same results that I'm seeing. And again, I'm going to go ahead and enable everybody's microphones. So in case you got a question, you can certainly ask. Okay. So good. Thank you. Yeah, because it helps if we're working with knowns. If I had you all going out to your company's environments, I wouldn't know what kind of data you have, what's going on, that sort of thing. So it's certainly a good question. Appreciate it. So this is how we can query for our information here. This is how we can do it. And by the way, if I want to make this into a dashboard, right up here in the upper corner, it says add to dashboard. And maybe I'll call this something like CPU load average 15 minutes. And the dashboard, I'm just going to put my initials in here. You don't have to do this, just watch. Create a new dashboard here. And I'm going to create a new dashboard on our new dashboard user interface. And I'm going to click add. And now here's my new dashboard. And I can very easily adjust its size, make it bigger, smaller. I can add other queries in here if I want to, metric queries or log queries right in here. All kinds of good stuff. Okay, so someone asked a question. Hi, John. Row A and B make a single query. Well, actually, you're right. It is in my mind, it's a single query, but these are actually 2 different statements. So these are two separate, distinct queries if you want to think about that, but they are basically combined together. So I don't really think of them as one or the other. And I mentioned to you earlier that you could turn on or turn off things in your legend. You can also go up here if you want to and turn on or turn off certain things if you want to by selecting the A or the B. In fact, I could even add a third query here, and I could take the difference of A minus B. And we show that to you in the metric mastery class. Now, I can sit here and play in this tool all day, but again, I've only got about 28 minutes left. So if you don't mind, I want to move on to the next topic area. Any other questions about this, creating a metric query? Again, my goal, my hope is that you find this interface pretty simple and pretty easy to use. All right. And that, ladies and gentlemen, in that PDF document there is this first part of this exercise. Now we're going to jump into the metric app demo, which I believe is on, I think, page 4 here of the PDF, if I'm right. And what I want to do, let me go back to my slides here to kind of set things up. So in talking about applications, right, we have pre-built a bunch of queries. We have pre-built a bunch of dashboards to make it easy for you. If you just install those apps, tie it to your data, you should be up and running very, very quickly. That is our goal. Now, you know, a lot of people might know Sumo Logic for our logs and for our metrics, and we're kind of trying to change the conversation a little bit. We're trying to focus on a concept called observability and full stack observability. Regardless of your infrastructure, regardless of your microservices platforms, regardless of what various web servers, databases, and things you're using, we want to be able to provide you transparency across your environments. If you're running a mixed environment, you got a little AWS and a little Azure, we want you to be able to use one environment to see them all, okay? A single sheet of glass. Particularly if you're doing something as complicated as, using Kubernetes to spawn off different things and to manage various processes. So we want to provide you full stack observability. In fact, you'll see very soon that when we do our Illuminate conference in October, we will be promoting some new certifications in observability, okay? So, but typically when people think about metrics with regards to their environments, regardless whether they're in the cloud or these are on-prem environments, they're typically looking at things like CPU utilization, memory utilization, my disk space allocation, stuff like that. And so we've got a bunch of applications pre-built that you can use to see various applications and how they're being used. So what am I saying? I'm saying that if I go back here to Sumo Logic in my navigation pane, where the hamburger menu is, and if I click it and open it up, and if I look at my main menu here under App Catalog, in my App Catalog, we have up to about 200 applications that are pre-built that you can use, right? Right now, we are all on Zoom. We are all, looking and attending this class through Zoom. And if you use Zoom a lot, people might want to know, how is my company using Zoom? And so if I want to, I can click on the Zoom app and I can preview my dashboards and I can see the kind of information it's telling me. Now, how many users are using here? What's the average meeting time? Who are my top users, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Where are people geography-wise, recent meetings? So we built these dashboards to try to provide you information about how your folks are using Zoom. Now, that being said, I want to introduce you to 2 applications that I've already installed in this training environment. So here in the library, in this folder right up here that I'm highlighting, if you click on that, that's our shared library that you and I and everybody in this environment can access. And if I look, there's a folder here called Host and Process Metrics. And if I click on Host and Process Metrics, I see there's a bunch of dashboards. And what I'm looking for to start with is this Host Metric Overview. Overview dashboards are a good place to start. So I'm going to click on this Host Metric Overview dashboard, and I'd like you to do the same. And I can close up my navigation panel. I don't need it anymore. So here, this process app, and by the way, this app hasn't been released yet. It's coming soon. It should be coming out the next month or so. But basically what this is showing me is this is showing me all my hosts with high CPU utilizations, as well as my CPU utilization, memory utilization, disk utilization across various groups and various hosts. And I can see the applications here that are running a little bit hot as far as memory utilization. I can see things that are running a little bit hot as far as disk utilization, okay? And it kind of makes sense to me that my databases would run hotter than other things. So I can see my inbound connections, outbound connections, network traffic, all kinds of neat stuff here, okay? Now, a lot of these queries are log-based queries. So I want to focus on some metric-based things. So here I've got my host with high CPU utilization. And what I want to do is I want to see why I've got this high CPU utilization. So if I click on this diagram, a little side panel comes out from my right side, and it shows me my CPU utilization. And sure enough, it looks pretty high. And down here, there's a linked dashboard that will show me my various host metrics and my processes that are running on that CPU. So if I click on that, and that's what I want you to do, I want you to click on that link. That takes us to this dashboard. And here, if I scroll down, I can see CPU utilization by process. And down here, I've got some nice running processes. My payment app checkout is running, and it's running at less than 20%, which is what I want. I've got another application in here that is payment app backup. That's running at about 20%. But this one in green, my payment app monitor, is running much hotter and higher than I would expect. Now, is it running as a system or a service account? Maybe that would help. You know, what's happening with this process? Why is this process running so hot? So I can click anywhere in this line, and again, a little panel pops out from the side that shows me a linked dashboard, which talks to me about this particular process, and it filters that particular dashboard for that particular process. So this process is typically running about 85%, pretty consistently over this time range. Also down here, I can see this process is running. It's part of a host group, part of a host, but here's the user who's running it. And here's how many read bytes and write bytes and CPU utilization we have. So now I can go find this user and I can ask him or her, hey, what's going on here? Why are you using this? You know, is it something that was poorly developed? Is it something that you run as a service account? You know, what is going on? So now I know specifically what process is going on and maybe what user might be, you know, doing this on a, you know, maybe they don't have the privileges or whatever they have, and therefore they're, you know, constantly fighting for CPU resource. But you can certainly now investigate this that much farther. So hopefully you're able to see how we went from a high level problem into specific stuff without having to look at logs or metric queries. We can do this all through the dashboards. Any questions about that app? By the way, if your environment's getting like mine kind of crowded up here with all these tabs, obviously you can close them up one at a time. But if you click on the three vertical dots on any of the tabs, you'll see you have an option to close all tabs. And if you click on that, Shazam, it closes all tabs. So
yeah, quick
nice
question.
Yes, sir.
Question. Yeah. Can you go back to the previous screen again? Sure. It shows the process detail, right? The payment thing.
Yep.
And can you drill further down and see what kind of cost it's actually making, getting to some kind of tracing data, what kind of system cost that particular process is making to figure out why that is taking up 80% something?
I understand. Actually, let me go through because the filters aren't being set here if I just jump right to that dashboard. So if I go into here, and when I call this other dashboard, it filters for this particular host group and this particular app. And then I go into here, it automatically filters my data for this specific process name. Now I could have went to that dashboard and selected the host group and the process name and done that. Now to answer your question, what I can do is I can go up here with, again, they got the more action button, and I can click on that and I can say, open it up in the metrics, and it will show me the underlying metric query. And I can see kind of the information of what's happening, and I can parse through that. Or maybe I want to look at the logs associated with this. Maybe I open up as a log search. And again, maybe I can see, what this user is trying to do with this particular application. So that part was not written, but the part where I can open up the underlying metric query was written for me. So does that answer your question? And it can be done. It just wasn't done in this case.
Okay. So you can still basically you kind of tracing down further the process, see what calls that's making internally.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Thanks.
No, thanks for asking. Yeah, again, folks, this is, the purpose of this workshop is for you, designed to help you and do what we can to help you. So again, this host and process metric is coming out soon. It'll be out in about a month or so. And then the other app we want to talk about is the MySQL app. So here in your PDF document, again, the MySQL app, if I go into, again, my shared library where things are, I see that there's a folder here called Metric Workshop. In the Metric Workshop is the MySQL Workshop app. And this app exists today. So I'm going to start at the MySQL overview. And here at my MySQL overview, and I don't know about you, I don't know what tools you guys have, but isn't this nice? I can see my server uptime. I can see the number of errors, replication errors, failed login attempts, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of good information here. And what I want to focus on right now is this excessively slow query number. So I have almost 5,000 queries that are running slow over a 24-hour period. So I can click on this, and as before, it shows me this nice little sidebar. And here I have a linked dashboard that focuses on slow queries. And this is part of the out-of-the-box application. So I can click on this, and now I'm looking at my slow queries. I can see the top 5 IP addresses that are firing off slow queries, the top 10 users who are creating slow, or who are firing, resulting in slow queries. I can see my slow queries based on different action types. And I can see my top 10 slow queries by average execution time. So now I could actually take these queries if I wanted to. I could copy them, put them in some sort of a task execution manager where I can see what the execution plan is of these. And then I can see where I can improve things by adding indices or doing other things to my database to improve the performance of these queries. So in my opinion, being able to go from a high level problem into be able to see the details, it's kind of nice. And let me go back to your question earlier. So I can take this particular query if I want to. I can open it up in a log search, and here's my log search. Here's my query. Here are my results. And I could, if I want to, parse out some additional information to see exactly what's going on here. So here in my field browser, let me turn this off or hide this for a second. In my field browser, maybe I want to see, I want to filter based on different lock times, or maybe I want to look at some specific tables or specific schemas. I can click and see that there are 5 different schemas here being involved, and it looks like my problem affects them all pretty evenly. So, you can see basically, again, you can break this problem down farther if you want to. So kind of helpful, I think. So that's our example of using applications to help you. And as I said, we've got up to about 200 different applications. Those of you running AWS, we got applications for that. Those of you running Azure, we got applications for that. Yes, sir?
Yeah, John, one more question.
Yeah.
So I know you already talked like a few seconds ago on this. Can you show where the advisories, like as I said, it also helps you, where to address or how to address, or giving some recommendations, as you said, is that also a part of this or no?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
No, I mean, so now you see this SQL query, it's taking a long time or whatnot, right? I mean, and
right.
From here, does it show any SQL advising? Meaning, okay, you probably need to go change this or add.
Gotcha, some hints and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That depends. It depends obviously on your database environment. But if your database environment is logging that to your logs, yes, we can see it. So if your logs are mentioning that we recommend a hint here or recommend something there, then yes, you can actually get that information into your logs and you'll be able to see it in your queries. What recommendations are there? You may want to add a dashboard that says, what are they recommending? What are the top 10 recommendations, hints and stuff like that. So it depends if your database supports that and if it's going to your logs. If it is, then yes, we can. If it's not, no, we can't.
Okay. It's basically reading what your database options are in there, whether it shows the.
Correct.
Okay, I see.
Right. And the other thing too in my mind is, look, if I've got a query problem, then I'm going to take it into my specific database. And like I said, I'm going to look at the execution plan, what hints it recommends, actions I want to take, and then I'll take those actions perhaps and test it for a little bit before I roll it back into production. But then, you can roll it back into production and see if that solved at least one or two of your issues here and see if that helped your overall execution plan. So, but like I said, hopefully when you look at things like databases or whole environments, cloud environments and stuff like that, trying to understand exactly which system's giving you problems and where and all that stuff, this is where this can all be so darn handy and so darn helpful. Yeah. So thanks for asking. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, if you don't mind, is I want to talk a little bit about alerts. Again, alerts is one of those areas where we built some alert mechanisms for logs. We built some alert mechanisms for metrics. And our customers said, we wish there was a kind of a unified alerting. And sure enough, there is. So when some people think and use the word alerting, monitoring, or whatever, their idea of monitoring is let's take a dashboard, put it on a big old flat screen, and let's put it part of our network operations center and let people watch it. Okay. And that could be, you certainly have seen, we have dashboards in here that you and I can put on a big screen and let the network operations center keep track of it. But when I talk about alerts, I'm talking about, look, something's gone wrong and it sends me an email or it tickles my pager duty or it does something to tell me I've got an action. I need to take action on this. So that's what I mean by alerts. And so let's talk about alerts here. How do we do alerts? Well, you may recall earlier that I created a metric query that went something like this. CPU, sys, load average. Actually, I'll grab CPU sys this time, if you don't mind. I'm going to grab CPU sys this time, and I want to grab a specific host, okay? I could grab mine, but I think I'm going to go ahead and grab my boss's. No, actually, I'm going to grab mine. And so there's my value, and here's my chart, and there's my data. So I'm looking at my CPU system value. Now, here, if I want to, on this little pull down, I can say I want to add this as a monitor. And if I click say add this as a monitor, it's going to take me into my monitor interface. Great, nice. Come back to that in a second. The other thing I could do is I could go into my Sumo Logic main menu by clicking on my navigation panel, open it up, and here under manage data, here under alerts, this takes me to the same place. Now, what I can do is I can create some monitors or alerts, and if I want to, I can combine them into folders. So I could have all my prod alerts in one folder, all my dev environment alerts in another folder, and so forth and so on. But as far as creating a monitor, if I click on this, create new monitor, this was the panel that we saw just a moment ago, but it was all filled in. So again, I could create either a log query or a metric query. And again, I could go CPU sys, source category equals, waiting for it to give me my choices here. There we go. Patience is not one of my virtues. Okay. So I've defined my query. Now, obviously in my query, when I look at my CPU sys, I've got nothing above 3.5%. So from a practical perspective, we're going to have to pretend here a little bit, right? I'm not going to alert you for a CPU that goes above 3%. When it gets to 90% or 80%, maybe I'll start warning you. But 3%, don't even care. It's not working up a good sweat. Now, as far as after you define your query, the next thing you do is you define your trigger type. So if I'm missing data, if this data is down, if I'm not getting data at all for whatever period of time, I can have it notify me. Oh, and not only am I going to tell you when you're missing data, we're also going to tell you when the data comes back. So we're not going to tell you there's a problem. We're going to tell you when the problem's solved. So we can notify you on both conditions. We can also set warning levels. And as I said, from a practical perspective, I may want to set my warning level here that says, look, if it gets above 2, anything below 2 is fine. Anything above 2, I want to be warned. And again, I can pick the time frame here and whether it's continuous or occasional. And then I can also be notified when, again, we recover, and I can let the recovery be at the same level, or I can have the recovery at a different level. So you can create like a safety valve, if you will. And then I can also set the trigger type to critical. And maybe I want to be notified when I'm greater than, we'll say 3. When I get above 3, then I want to be notified. Now, in reality, it'd probably be like 95% or something, But you can define the criteria by which you're going to be notified. Then down here, you define how you want to be notified. Do I want to send an email? Do I want to, again, using our APIs and other products APIs, do I want to send a message to Slack or Microsoft Teams? Do I want to, again, hit pager duty? What do I want to send it to Datadog? Whatever you want to do, you'll have the ability to do in here. And so in my case, I'm going to simply say, I'm going to create a new email. And I can decide, who do I want to send this to? Maybe I want to send it to the owner of the machine. Maybe I want to send it to the IT department. Who knows who I want to send this to, right? I want to send this to support at Sumo Logic, whatever. You define the email addresses that you want to go to. Subject line, again, some standard text. These dynamic text are going to say something like missing data, or missing data recovered, or warning recovered, or critical recovered. And then whatever my search name is, whatever my query name is here. By the way, there's a bunch of other variables here that I can use. Description, monitor type, results in JSON. I can get that information out if I want to. And then also here in my message, I can type it in some static text. And it will also provide me some diagnostical information about my monitor and the levels and stuff it's at. It automatically embeds that in the message. Then I could say I want this message to fire when I'm missing data and I recover from missing data, or a warning and I recover from that warning, or, and if you want additional notifications at different levels, you can create different notifications. So maybe I want to send an email, and maybe I want to activate pager duty, or I want to send something to Datadog. You can have different situations for different parts of these check marks. And then all you have to do is you have to name this. So I'm going to call this JWM test monitor. And up here is my save button. I wish the save button was down here at the bottom, since I'm going through all of this, dragging myself through. At the bottom, I'm rewarded with a save button, but it's up here at the top. So I'm going to save it. Now, here, when I look at my monitors, I can see any monitor that's in a critical state. I can see any monitors that are disabled. I could see any monitors that are normal. I can even see warnings if I want to. Here's my monitor. And if I want to, here, I can disable that monitor if I want to. I can also delete that monitor. And I'm going to delete this just because I don't want to create more stuff that I need to take care of. But this is how we create alerts and monitors. And again, if you want to, if you're familiar with logs, you can go in here and create a new monitor and base it on your log query. So you can do all that as well.
Hey,
So that's
John,
our monitors. Question?
how often the Sumo Logic probes the systems
Yep.
for data? And
So what happens is it runs this in the background and it probes every time there's a new piece of data.
so it's like every minute, every second,
Every 10 seconds, I think.
every 10 seconds. And is it integrated with, I saw with the first service you have integration. What about ServiceNow?
I believe it. If it's not there right now, it's on the roadmap to incorporate. So I don't think Service Map is there right now, but I know we're actively working to make that available.
And I know I was late. You probably went through this. Could you also put the link where I can find this PowerPoint presentation?
Yep, I did, but I'll put it in there again. Since one of the problems is when you sign into our environment, is you don't see the chats before that. And so let me put that information back in here.
Get the recording of this, so that will
That's
help.
also, that link will also give you a recording of this class.
Awesome. Thank
So it's got the slides, it's got the PDF, and it's got the recording. So yeah, it's probably the recording from this morning, I believe, but it's we update it from time to time. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a few minutes left here. Let me wrap this thing up and see what we got. So hopefully, my goal, my key takeaways, I hope that you see is, first of all, hey, this metric interface is pretty easy. And I create some pretty powerful metric queries. The second thing I hope you take away is we saw some apps, and we can see how those apps can get you the information you need right now without having to build any queries or build any dashboards. So our goal is those apps will get you 90 or 70 to 90% of where you need to be. And probably for your company, you want to tweak the last 10% or 30% or whatever to get you to that 100%. But out of the box, this should get you close. And then finally, we talked about unified learning, right? And so how unified learning can help you. Now, there's a lot of other things I could talk about metrics. We can convert logs to metrics. We can convert different metric types, metric formats. But again, due to time constraints, we're really not focused on that. But if you do want to know more, you can go into our documentations, into that metric chapter, and read up that information. Or if you want to know more about our applications, again, you can go to our documentation. That's help.sumologic.com, and you'll find there's a chapter on the Sumo Logic applications. And if you go out to YouTube, those of you who are like YouTube, you can go out there and do a search. You'll find Sumo Logic has a channel for a bunch of 5-minute videos, micro learnings as we call them, on how to set up a collector, how to set up a source, how to, what a metric, how to do logs to metrics, all kinds of neat things. And because I'm a member of the training team, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we have classes for these sort of things. So here is the normal metric mastery class. It's a 3-hour class, 2 hours of lecture and lab, and 1 hour of certification time. You can take the exam. But basically, we go over, again, how to do logs to metrics. We go over all the various aspects of metrics. So to get there, again, sumologic.com/learn/training, and that will take you there. You can see what's scheduled. When we do classes, of course, we do virtual classes. We also try to do regional classes. Now, our regional classes right now are all online because of COVID. I am hoping that COVID goes away so we can get back to traveling and coming out and seeing you guys face to face. I have no doubts, and some of you are from Toronto. Well, we get back to this, we get past COVID, I'll see you all in Toronto and various major cities throughout, including Auckland. I know a lot of us want to get down to New Zealand or Australia, that sort of thing. But typically we'll gladly come out and help you out. So let's see what questions you got. Okay.
Yeah, I have one last one.
Yeah.
So the monitors and the alerts, John, are there anything out of the box? Like, or you need to set up for every single thing? Because there's supposed to be some out of the box. Like if your CPU is say 95 and above, or if anything like general, the standards, right?
Okay.
The latency is going too high, because setting up every individual alert and the monitors, that can be very pain if you have thousands.
It can be a real pain in the neck.
Yeah.
I agree. So let me introduce this idea to you. I can take any one of these monitors and you'll find that you can export them, and they're going to export out as JSON. Then you can modify the JSON that's there. And if you want to, you can go back in here and you can import them. So back into add, I can import them back. So it's not, it's not as simple as dragging an object and saying, I want this, I want that, but it's the next best thing. So exporting and importing might be your way. Don't get me wrong, that's a great product enhancement. I would encourage you to go out to our community, and I would ask you that you maybe put that in, because it would be nice. There are certain standards that most companies have, and it would be nice just to be able to drag an object and put it here. So, but these are all written in JSON. And so we can import and export. That's the closest thing I've got.
Okay, so basically import export means once you put it in customers, it basically applies to everything on this platform.
What
That's
applies
it
to
is?
whatever your query is based on. So
Okay.
for example, here, this is a log query. And if I edit it, this is specifically looking for Apache data, right?
Yeah.
So, depending on how you write it, whether it's a log query or metric query, you can filter and decide what you're looking for, what kind of data you're looking at.
Okay. Okay.
That help?
But yeah, it did, but it did not say which server or which app or which site. So that means everything that Sumo is deployed on, or
If I don't specify, if I don't specify that, it's everything. Yes.
okay, that's good. That's
So,
good.
yeah.
Hey, John, a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys have anything or any tutorials related for information security and how Sumo Logic manage the data that is ingested by, let's say, CrowdStrike or other kind of information security cloud devices?
Yep. Good question. Let me take that URL that I copied and let me paste it up here and add a new tab. And the reason I want to do that is I want to answer your question. So there's two types. When we think about security, there's two different ways of thinking about it. So here in our, where is it? Security. We need to add our, oh, there it is. Security monitoring and analytics. So here, these labs right here talk about an AWS environment. So we have examples of writing queries against an AWS environment for failed logins, LAD speed violations, all kinds of fun stuff.
Okay.
And for those of you on Azure, we have a set of exercises for Azure in here as well.
Okay, so one is expressly done for AWS, right?
Done for AWS and Azure. Yep.
I'm not sure. And then what about if ingest data from other sources like an intrusion detection system or intrusion prevention system or something like that?
You'd probably have to write it yourself is the short answer, I think. I don't have anything out of the box, but here, let me throw something else at you. And here we have this option called Cloud SIEM Enterprise. And we've got some training coming out about Cloud SIEM Enterprise. And basically what I have here, let me shrink it down so you guys can see a little bit better. Here's my Cloud SIEM Enterprise environment. And this is the product that we have where we take all the log data and we're looking for intrusion detection and all kinds of other MITRE ATT&CK framework type things. And we're going to take the, in this case, from the last 24 hours, 690,000 records, and we're going to correlate that into 6 insights. So these insights are really where an issue exists. So I can, you can, we can use this tool to look at a specific insight, and it will correlate various signals together based on IP, host name, based on whatever. And it tells us the story of what's been going on over a 2-week period. So here I can grab information through guard duty, and I can see a penetration test was done, and I can see traffic volume was unusual severity. And so, but the point is there's training for this, a certification course coming for this being built that will show you at our Illuminate conference in October, both an analyst portion of this course and an administrator portion of this course.
Yeah. Can you point me there on the link or something like that?
Oh, the problem, we haven't created the links yet because we're still working through the courses. We're doing some trial training on this now. But when you see our Illuminate site, when our Illuminate site comes up for our annual conference in October, to be virtual, by the way, you'll see these classes and you can sign up for them. Believe me, we'll offer this lots and lots and lots.
Okay, how do I get into your list or to get those that kind of information as soon as it get released?
Good question. I'm trying to think. We have a mailing list or anything like that. I know our customers will know for sure that we have the Illuminate event, and you can register and sign up and all stuff. I would be surprised if you didn't hear about that. I will say this, I know our Illuminate event is October 5th, 6th, and 7th, I think. If you don't see something by September, you are welcome to send me an email. and I will gladly send you links, and I will gladly try to do anything I can to help you.
No problem. Sounds fair. If not, then I will, if you don't mind, I'm gonna send you a ping from your email to your email.
Yep.
And then just to, be in sync on there,
Sure. The other thing you'll find is we do post that stuff on LinkedIn a lot. So if you're on LinkedIn, we talk about our upcoming events and upcoming things and upcoming training. So that's another place to hear about that stuff.
That's great.
But we try not to spam you to death.
That's great.
So any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? I see I've ran long. I apologize for that. Any other
sorry.
questions?
It-
Okay, then I'd like to thank you all for attending, and I hope to see you in the class again real soon. Please be careful. Please be safe. And like I said, we look forward to seeing you in the future. Bye.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, John.
Bye.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thanks,
You
John.